Chapter 18. June 21st at 8:20 a.m. Hey Brant. Someone's here to see you. Adam stood at the open door of his office the next day. Brant raised one eyebrow. He wasn't expecting anyone. Who is it? Adam shrugged. Deputy Brooker of Nicola County. What the hell? Brant's stomach twisted. He lurched partway out of his chair. Adam grinned. You don't look so happy. Very odd, he murmured to himself. No, I'm happy, he corrected Adam. I'd like to talk with the little piss-ass. Oh, there's nothing little about this guy. Brant, in the process of clearing off the top of his desk and locking up sensitive files, scowled. Big. How big? Adam snorted. This guy makes me look like an infant. Scary. Adam nodded. If I had to describe him, I'd say he was one hell of an arrogant sob, far too used to getting his own way. Shit. So Sam was probably right about him. Well then, time to go see why he'd come and what he knew about Sam. Thanks, Adam. Anyone in the conference room? I don't think so. Is that where you want to talk to him? Yeah. I'm not sure yet, but this guy quite possibly needs to be behind bars himself. Don't want to extend too much courtesy just in case. Sounds good. I'm heading down there now. Why don't I deliver him to conference room 1 for you? Good. That saves me a trip and gives me a little more distinction. I could use that in this case. What kind of trouble is he? Adam walked out of the office with Brant. I think he's been a lot of trouble for a young girl. Then no special treatment for him. We don't need more of his kind. According to my information, he's also into corrupting law enforcement and running drugs. He shared a look with Adam. They both knew other assholes just like this one. I need to make a quick call, then I'll be down. Adam left, and Brant called his mom. His call went to voicemail. Last night, Maisie had convinced the hospital staff to bring a cot into the colonel's room, so she could stay with him. Brant's protests had been shot down immediately. Chances were she was still there, but he'd feel better if he'd reached her. A second call to the hospital confirmed that his mom had spent the night, and that the colonel hadn't woken up. As luck would have it, his mom was at the nurse's station, speaking with the nurse too. He spoke with Mom briefly, confirming that she'd gotten some sleep. She sounded more chipper this morning. Brant then headed to the conference room, quickly scratching down a few notes and questions that he wanted to ask as he walked. Entering the room, he found a huge man with beefy shoulders, not a beer belly, rather a beer barrel that completely covered the belt holding up his pants. Dressed in uniform, the deputy's beady eyes held a voracious gleam that belied the smile on his face. Detective Sutherland? At Brant's nod, the older man stepped forward, his hand outstretched. Thank you for taking the time to see me. I appreciate it. Brant shook the man's hand, then motioned to a seat opposite his. He sat down, sliding his hand along his pants to wipe it clean before opening the conversation. I'm surprised. Did you just happen to be in this region? Nope. I came specific. This case, Samantha Blair, is way too important to leave to chance. Oh, you didn't mention that there was a case when we talked on the phone. Deputy Brooker shifted his bulk into the big boardroom chair. I thought long and hard about it, but decided I needed to come and check this out. I'd just about given up finding her when I got your phone call. What do you want with her? She caused me a bunch of trouble a few years ago. I believe she stole something from my family that I would really like returned. Brant frowned. Sam didn't mention anything about that. Stole something? Like what? Files and folders. Our family history. We went to a spell of trouble to collect this material, and we'd surely like it back. The man was full of shit. Still, he was here. Therefore, whatever he wanted was important. Brant didn't think any of it would be good for Sam. What was she like the last time you saw her? The beefy man hitched the front of his pants up over the lower portion of his belly. He shifted his weight. The chair creaked in protest. She was a mouthy know-it-all. Just like she'd been every other time I'd seen her. The things that come out of that girl's mouth were something else. She's surely a liar, she is. A liar. Brant barely restrained the desire to jump across the table and strangle the bloody fool. A liar, but not a fraud? Nope, usually her visions were spot on. But that girl's a social misfit. She's not the same as you and me. She needed a keeper then, and I'm sure things haven't changed. What is your intention when you meet her? Just talk to her. See if she's had a change of heart in the meantime. Maybe she's ready to give the material back now. Or has she ditched it somewhere along the last few years? Brant took a few notes, more to calm the fury inside than for later information. No way this asshole was getting close to Sam. She had a bad car accident after she was in your neck of the woods. Did you know that? I'd heard. And in truth, I thought maybe she hadn't survived. I'd called the hospital a time or two, but word was she was in bad shape and not expected to live. That's when I put it all away in my head. Until your phone call. Then I hopped into my truck and came here. Shit. Brant was responsible for this mess. Truck. As in black truck? Long trip. When did you pull into town? Oh, I arrived a couple days ago. Didn't want to come knocking right away. Figured you'd be mighty busy. Brant sighed, keeping his head down. The asshole was lying through his teeth. So he had been around when Sam called Brant, screaming on her phone about some guy trying to run her off the road. Through the DMV, Brant could find out what this guy drove. Putting him on the highway at the same time as Sam was a different story. How to prove that? Yes, we're swamped. Portland is a big city, and it's not like there's ever a down season. The deputy laughed. Crime never takes a holiday. Isn't that the truth? As much as Brant would like to cuff this guy with the information he had from Sam, he knew, in good conscience, that he'd need to hear what Sam had to say about the deputy's claims. Then he'd have another talk with the deputy, on his terms. 10:48 a.m. It had not been a good day. As a matter of fact, as days went, this one sucked. Bill had finally located the right hospital, only to find out his drugged victim was still alive and in a coma. What the hell? If she died? Great. If she stayed in a coma for the rest of her life? Even better. He kind of liked that concept. But if she awoke, that was bad news. It couldn't be allowed to happen. He'd have to think this one over, while monitoring the situation. Then he'd gone on to the care center with his dogs. The dogs had been great, the staff had been great. The people, however? What was with those old people? They all had a gambling problem, for one thing. And for another, they were a bunch of busybodies. Like that one old geezer. Apparently, he knew something about the ring the media had flashed on the television. Those damn old folks were betting on when the colonel would remember just what it was. Who could have predicted such a problem? Well, Bill had had no choice, had he? The guy couldn't be allowed to remember anything about him, ever. That little bit of violence had been just enough to whet his appetite, to rouse the beast inside, yet not enough to sat it either. It had been too fast, not well planned, and that bothered him a bit. Yet he'd had few options. Prudence said he should be home and out of sight right now. He'd actually been driving in that direction when he'd seen her. She was perfect. He pulled off the road to a small parking lot, so he could watch her sashaying down the sidewalk. The glare shining through the windshield irritated him. It limited his view. Rummaging in the glove box, he finally came up with a scratched pair of sunglasses. Better than nothing. Putting them on, he quickly searched the area in front of the drugstore that she'd walked into a few minutes earlier. There. She was laughing at something someone had said, her head turned as she walked out the door. She strode with confidence in the sunshine. God, he loved that. Loved to see a woman sure of her sexuality, sure of who she was. And she was so wrong. That was the best part. Stripping away their innocence and teaching them about the real monsters of the world. He leaned forward for a better view. She turned left and moved smoothly down the sidewalk. Look at her walk, liquid honey. He grinned. Perfect. He hopped out of the truck and followed behind at a steady pace. When she entered a small clothing boutique, he found a bench on the sidewalk and sat to enjoy the sunshine. He had nothing better to do except follow her around. She loved her little boutiques, and before the month was out, he'd know every one of them. 2:20 p.m. The afternoon was gorgeous. Sam felt like shit. Leaning against the front door frame of her cabin, looking out to the rest of the world, Sam mentally ran through the various options. She still had several days before she started working with Stefan. In the meantime, she had some homework to do. If these visions would stop, she might actually have the energy to work on them. Her phone rang. Butterflies took flight in delight at the ID on her phone display. Brant. He'd slid into her consciousness, like he'd always belonged there. When had he gone from a cop to a friend, and now to mean something so much more? Hi, Brant. What's up? I need to see you today. I need to go over something with you, and it's better to do this in person. Will you be home this afternoon or evening? Sam's stomach dropped. In person would be great, except nothing about this sounded good. Now what? I'm here all day and night. I'll work on Stefan's exercises this afternoon, then head to the lake for a swim. She hesitated for a moment. What's this about? Deputy Brooker came into the office today. His story is a little different than yours. She snorted. What? He's in town? Sam gripped the cell phone in her hand, her knuckles turning white. When did he get here, and what is he driving? I think I saw that same black truck yesterday. What? Why didn't you say something? I didn't know if it was the same vehicle or not. I was still in town, so took off around the corner. I never saw him again. He owns a black Dodge truck, but that doesn't mean it was him driving or even his vehicle. We're running a check on him now. You stay there and just be careful. If anyone shows up but me, hide unless you know them. I'll get there in a couple hours, earlier if I can. She shook her head. Not good enough. Not even close. Only what were her options at this point? None. Then you damn well better show up soon, or I'll be coming after you. Her phone closed with a snap. Sam let out a shaky breath. Okay. Another problem. She was good at those. She snorted. Like hell. In the past she'd run. So what would she do now? Stick around and fight.